Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity. And this evening, I have a very special guest from Canada, Sylvain Rochon. Sylvain, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is how I introduce myself. Just prefacing this, I am the Paradise Engineer. That's what I say. Well, this is, I mean, I know Mansouri about personal branding. This is my personal brand. This is my color. It's my bow tie. I'm the Paradise Engineer. Now, I'm. What does that mean? It means this is who I am fundamentally. But just in a traditional sense, I would like to tell you who I am. I am a futurist. I am an author. I've published one book, only one, Mansour. I don't know how
That's
many you've
okay.
published,
I
but
won't hold it against you.
but I'm also published I've published over 100 articles on the internet and various publications. I have lots of videos on my YouTube channel and so on. But I'm also a serial entrepreneur, and serial means many businesses, past and present and future. There's still
In
some
sequential
startup.
order, right? Not parallel.
No, it's well, actually, it isn't parallel and serial. It turns out it's both. So currently, I'd say I'm a certified master entrepreneur, facilitator, and coach. That's my coaching format, if you will. I am the chief marketing officer of a new business called Psychometrics, which is a team building assessment business. I am one of the directors and co-founders of the Canadian Institute of Mass Communication. I am a delegate of the World Future Society. So I'm well involved in that. And it's probably things that I forget. So basically, I'm interested in many things, but primarily it's about engineering a better world, hence the term engineering paradise.
Wow, what an introduction. What an introduction, Sylvain. So yeah, you that is your brand. You are this futurist who thinks about a lot of things. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you and I immediately kind of connected mentally. We kind of immediately bonded, even though we haven't known each other for a long time. But it seemed like there was this instant, like, what do you call that? Symbiosis or whatever. Like
Kindred
we were feeling
spirits.
each other.
Yeah, and immediately I remember we started talking about different things. We met one on one because we were busy doing something specific at the time when we met, doing interviews and things.
Mm-hmm.
And we fell on the topic of personal branding, which is what we've started talking about here.
Right,
You're a doctor, cybersecurity leadership.
right,
I'm the Paradise Engineer. But it
right.
turns out we have similar mindsets and goals. We want to, impact other people's lives in a positive way, just from different angles. That's all.
Exactly. Right. No, absolutely. So what are some of the topics that you want to talk about today, Sylvain? This should be an interesting conversation.
Well, as always, I want to talk about the future.
Okay.
Um, because especially this year, it's been interesting because
Mm,
COVID gave us huge amounts of opportunities.
right.
And that's the positive spin of it,
I think
because
so.
it's been an amazing year.
Yeah. Oh, in every
Automation.
adversity, there has to be something positive. I mean, that's the way I've always looked at it because there's most of the adversities we cannot control. So if we cannot control, we have to figure out how to solve, minimize the damage, and move on. Right? That's
Absolutely.
yeah.
And this year's not different than the other years. We're looking at the situation we have. And my whole spiel, basically, when I teach, especially I'm going to talk about mindset a lot, because if looking into the future is not about just technology.
Right.
Just like cybersecurity is not all about cybersecurity, like the
Right.
actual
Right. Right.
technical code,
Hmm.
it's way broader than that.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's about the mindset. How do you view things? So right now, a lot of people are kind of feeling reactive, right? There's
Hmm.
information, there's vaccine coming out of control, right? We don't control over our life. On the
Right.
contrary, we do.
Hmm.
We just have to look at this situation the way we understand it, and
Correct.
then take decisions and drive towards a future that is more desirable for us. So that's, which is part forecasting, part information, but a
Hmm.
lot of just motivated positive thinking.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
you talked about the future thing because if you remember, it was last year that you and I tried to collaborate in doing this workshop, because it was that same mindset we were approaching, that we wanted to empower others. Because I think in your future mindset, you're still talking about empowering others so that they're in better control of their destiny. Well, the funny thing is that because in some ways that thing didn't take off, I decided to finally write this book, which was in the works 2 years ago, but I was just not finding the time. So COVID gave me all kinds of time in my hands. So finally, I just busted through and put it all together, because this book is all about that future that you're talking about, which is, okay, what's happening right now is we have this incredible concentration of power and wealth into fewer and fewer hands, but the real money producers, in other words, the producers of the wealth, which are the workers. So top level executives, they're not the producers of the wealth. The producers of the wealth are workers. In my case, in the university level, it was the faculty members, the program chair. These are the people. People higher than us at the dean, provost, president level, they don't really bring in the money. They don't deliver the product. They don't do the marketing. We are the ones doing all of that. And we were producing multi-million dollars worth of value, but our jobs were always insecure. And even if you go ask for a raise, they're like, oh, so you're unhappy about your contract. Should we terminate your contract? I mean, we're happy to terminate your contract, because they're thinking we're like a dime a dozen, but that's not the way it is. Because every time somebody like us leaves, there's a tremendous drain on revenue, because we're the revenue producers, right? We're the ones supporting the salaries of everybody above us. So this book, through personal branding, starts to give that power back to the producers of value, you see? Because as long as I'm the one producing the value, I can take that value anywhere I go, right? Because any company that hires me is never going to pay me the full value of what I produce, because they have to make the profit. But they have to pay me a fair share. In other words, my contribution, my compensation must be proportional to my contribution. And that is the future that I see more and more. Why? Because the normal worker is now becoming empowered through technology to have their voice. They can shop their services to multiple employers. They don't have to go with one. And they have 24 hours in a day. What is full-time work anymore, right? 40 hours, okay. 40 hours contiguously or discontiguously, because you have a lot more than 40 hours in a week. Why should I give that extra hours? Because there are some companies that expect you to work 80 hours, 120 hours. I'm not doing that. That's not what you're paying me for, right? That's right. That's the empowerment and the mindset that I want people to get. And that's why I also talk about this bringing the inner greatness out. Because we all have these talents, because you just talked about, look at the multitude of talents that you have. You're not one-dimensional. So when you go to a job, you're not just bringing one dimension, like teacher, you're a professor. You're not just teaching, you're also marketing, you're also mentoring, you're leading, you're promoting the university, you're bringing in students. So all kinds of things. So should I just pay you for the teaching part?
That's right. No.
Right? So I want people to start negotiating and thinking that way.
Absolutely. And even at a lower level than that, you can look at consumers. So you're not working, you're basic, just consuming whatever things that are being produced. We have a lot more power than we used to as consumers. And we can see this in trends in the market where companies now are trying to find some kind of value purpose, if you may have noticed. To add, like, I don't know, they're going to, support the Black Lives Matter movement, LGBTQ, or whatever cause they may be. And they're trying to be authentic to it. And the reason they're doing that, it's not because they're enlightened all of a sudden. It's because the consumers, because of the internet and all the accesses from all the devices, they have a smorgasbord of choices.
Correct. And so what they choose has an impact on the bottom line.
Buy from. Right? they're all kind of the same products at variations of price, but I care more about this value or this purpose, and therefore, so that's why companies are. So the consumer has a lot of power on his own as well in deciding where the market goes, and if we vote our conscience essentially with our dollars as consumers.
Yes,
we're driving where businesses angle themselves, and we're driving what you mentioned about employment and how that works too. It's all interconnected holistically.
Yes, I believe so.
And it's going to be exacerbated. It's going to be even more so in the future with more empowerment through AI, for example. Where you just have the AI kind of choose what's more aligned to you, and then you have like even more choices because you can get choices that in a different language if you want, and and all that stuff. And it's so it's a time, to your point about empowerment and develop your own greatness, is to recognize the power that we have as individuals.
Right. So I'm also hoping that the future also holds something better for education, because that is another area where I'm deeply disturbed with the way education is, because that's another concept that I write in this book, because all the educational programs that I've ever developed, and even my own childhood education up until the 5th grade, I was in a Montessori method school. Now, I didn't know any other kind of school. To me, that was a normal way of learning. But what I learned later on was that in a Montessori method, they treat each child as an individual to grow whichever way they want to. And you can mix and match different age kids in the same classroom and cater to each child differently. Well, in adult education, graduate education, and all of that, the future of education is no longer the traditional school age people going from high school to college to whatever. They're going to do all kinds of zigzagging. They're going to go to work, and they're going to work and study at the same time. So that concept of traditional student is disappearing. So therefore, we now have to bring that whole Montessori method of concept, which is treat each individual as them and see what is that inner greatness they have, right? And bring that out. And for me, the graduate education that I developed and all this showed me that is absolutely possible. I had people that were 20 years old or 40 years old and 60 years old, and we were all teaching them and helping them succeed. Some people may take 2 times, 3 times, 3 attempts, but that's okay. I don't care how many attempts you take as long as you reach the goal, right? Competency.
Right. No, absolutely. The current system is still somewhat angled to producing manufacturing workers, right?
Exactly.
Like line workers. It's still there. It's done. It's had some steps. It has progressed, but very, very little. And like to your point, what we need now, because the information is abundant, and different forms of education of how you can learn are also abundant and at the fingertips.
Right.
What do we want to know? We want to teach individuals, not students.
Yes.
So teach them how to live, how to learn, how to be sociable, like the soft skills, because they'll have access to everything. And as we move forward, like looking into the future, Mansoor, right?
Yeah.
We should. I mean, it's a difficult beast to change, but we should move towards something that was done a few hundred years ago, which was apprenticeships.
Yes.
And following the master, whatever career that is, in an unstructured manner, so that you learn skills, behaviors, and tasks at your own pace. So you're going back to and it's still very structured because tech kind of keeps track of everything, but we don't want people that learn exactly the same thing the same way, because that's how you train robots and AI. And AI can do that really well. People are unique. You teach about uniqueness, right?
Yes.
Well, we got to be taught as unique individuals.
Yep.
It's important.
Yep.
And that's where I'm attempting to direct the education system. And I talk to people in the education system to kind of inject some of that wisdom. There is willingness in my city, in a college and university here to go that route. But they have to deal with all the political and regulations that are constraining them into into the traditional model. So it's a progress. It's it's going to take a while.
No, so this is one of the things that I recognized recently. So I realized that at the program chair or faculty level, we're not going to make the change.
Mm-mm.
So people like me, you, we need to be in higher levels where we can actually make change. So maybe at the provost, maybe presidential level. So that's why I basically took a step back and decided that no, I'm not going to be in a chair roles anymore because that's not me. At that point, people above me are already dictating the models of education. And sometimes when I even try to put a competency-based education that is actually producing award-winning students and award-winning programs, they're still like, I'm like a tall poppy or something. I'm an outlier, right? Because maybe I'm showing everybody else up because nobody else is winning the awards. And so people have to cut you down. This is the syndrome that you face in typical academia. So we really have to be in positions of power to be able to make a difference. If we're not, then the other way to do is to continuously consult and educate the people in positions of power, and hopefully some president and some provost starts to listen. I mean, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And you're right. Like working into the system is a long haul, and it's difficult and it's heartbreaking. But to paraphrase Buckminster Fuller, if you want to affect any significant change, you have to create a new system, a better one, which will make the old one obsolete. So you don't, essentially, it's not about, to affect change, it's often not about fighting against the system that's pre-existing, because that's tiring and often
right. No, that
doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurship, innovation, being a consultant kind of on the side, being the outlier and the motivated outlier, creating a new way of doing things. A good example is the Khan Academy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, oh, let's.
I've been a big fan of Khan Academy for a long time. Yes.
Yeah. And then like people like, oh, great, I can learn these math things on my own. And then look at it now. And I was like, last time I checked, they had over 10 million students.
Right.
And it's all video. And they started off like what was nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When things, were not as evolved as it is now. But that's an example of, well, creating something in parallel that is superior, more modern. Right. And then there's a shift in the consumer, because the consumer gets a choice. If you don't have a choice, then you're going to get what you have access to. But if you have a choice that seems to be superior, well, you're going to vote for that. You're going to go with your dollars or with your energy, and the traditional systems see the competition, then they have to change. Otherwise, they get left behind. So
we have time for maybe one more topic, because we're already about at 18 minutes or so. So what other things should we talk about? We can still talk offline after that, but I don't like to make the video too long.
Sure. Well, I don't have anything in mind. I enjoyed this conversation.
All right. All right. So then we will stop the recording right here, because I think we have plenty for people to get some value out of it, and then we can network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. It was great to see you.
It was amazing. I was so glad we could have a bit of a chat. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Other opportunities will probably appear. And keep being you. Keep showing up in different areas where you get to make excellent collections that you didn't anticipate.
I will.
It works fine.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye now.